Now, to get ready for chopping, I'm gonna repeat myself again. We've got our cutting board, we've got our knives. Underneath our cutting board, we've got our grippy thing underneath the cutting board to keep it from sliding around. And in this case, it's just a damp paper towel. It's so important because like this stability, if this is moving around, guarantee you're gonna cut yourself at some point. So we're gonna start with tomatoes. So tomatoes are an interesting thing to chop. And I'm gonna start with them because they need a kind of different knife. So I've told you that you need a 8-inch chef's knife for almost everything, right? And this will work to cut a tomato, right? It works pretty well. But tomatoes are kind of slippery. Like you can see they're shiny, like they've got kind of a waxy texture, and in many cases they actually are waxed at the grocery store. Even if you wash them, that wax layer kind of stays on. That's because they're naturally kind of waxy. And so if you try to cut this with a chef's knife, you might notice it's sliding. Like if you look, it's actually just sliding off right now. It's not even gripping. I'm actually just like brushing. It's not even catching it. So while you can cut a tomato with a chef's knife, a serrated knife works much better. These little teeth right here catch and hold the tomato and cut right through it. And I'm gonna show you how. See? Super easy. We're gonna show you what it looks like to try and cut with a chef's knife. Ugh. It works, but look at that. It smushed the bottom, right? Like the bottom got kind of smashed up, so we're gonna pitch that piece. With the serrated knife, it actually made a nice clean cut all the way down to the bottom. You use a nice light sawing motion and just go straight down this way. Remember, you have your fingers in the claw and you're holding your knife like this. You're gripping the back of the knife with your thumb and the knuckle of your forefinger. So this is the position you will always be cutting things from, at least when it comes to cutting fruits and vegetables. So that's a basic slice. It's super easy. Now, there's a school of thought out there that the seeds on tomatoes are bad. I don't really think that it's true one way or the other. People tend to sometimes pull them out because they think that they don't add anything to a flavor, and they're just kind of wet. Like they don't really do much, but they don't really like detract much either. I don't usually take the time to de-seed tomatoes. I don't think it's worth it. Sometimes you'll get a really juicy tomato. You'll pop it open and it's like all seeds in the middle. And in that case, I might pop them out with a spoon, just like to pop them out like this, throw them in your trash bowl. But you don't have to. It's totally up to you. It's one of those things where, I think it's personal preference. And I've had a lot of chefs tell me I needed to do it one way, and then I've had a lot of chefs tell me that it doesn't really matter. So it's like, who's to say? Do what you want to do. So now we're going to take these little slices we've made and we're going to chop them. And again, we're going to use our serrated knife. And we're just going to go straight down this way, straight down this way. And because due to the shape of tomatoes, like they'll kind of chop themselves, right? Like I've just sliced this slice and now I've got little bits. And we're going to slice this here, and you'll see that it's just kind of in little squares automatically. And what we've got left are the edges of these big pieces. And this is why tomatoes are kind of awkward to chop, right? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna make it easy on ourselves. We're gonna line them all up, and we're just gonna chop this way. And we've got a nice chopped tomato, right? Again, if you don't like the seeds, you can pull them out. I don't really care personally. Like I like the mass they give. Like I find if I take out the middles of all my tomatoes that I end up with not a lot of tomato left, and I end up with a lot of excess tomato in my trash bowl that I could have actually been eating. Like I'm paying for that tomato. It's still good for me. It still tastes good. Like why would I want to throw it away? So we're going to set these guys aside, and I'm going to show you how to slice a tomato even finer. So we've got another tomato here. Since we're chopping this guy a little bit finer, we're going to take off the very end. And we're going to pitch that guy in the trash bowl. Actually, I'm going to set all of these aside over here. And we're going to make a thinner slice. These are going to be like, for example, nice sliced tomatoes for a salad. And you've got this guy. Take it even a little thinner. We want to make them as even as possible. Whoop. And we want to use nice, even pressure. And you can see that those are looking really nice. Do one more. And here's the thing about tomatoes. Like you'll notice that I have my finger in the claw like this, right? Eventually I'm gonna run out of tomato, and the tomato itself is kind of slippery. Like it just slipped out of my hands. So that's when you turn it around and you just start chopping or slicing from the other side. right? Remember, you don't ever want to slice towards your hands. You don't ever want to slice where the knife, if it slips down the side of the vegetables, it's going to slip towards your hands. So when it gets to that point, you turn it around. So if the knife slips, it slips and goes away from your hands. So we're going to keep slicing. And this serrated knife works so well on these tomatoes. It's so much easier to cut a tomato with a serrated knife than it is with a chef's knife. And we've got our beautiful tomato slices. If you want to chop these up, you can. They look really good. We've got our nice little sort of dice here. We've got our nice sliced tomatoes here. And that's about it. I'm going to move these off to the side, this little bowl right here. I want to talk about peeling tomatoes. So there's a method that you can use to peel tomatoes called tomatoes concasse, and it's a great method. Basically what you do is you have a big pot of boiling water, and you take your tomato, and you put an X on it right here, not very deep, just through the skin, and maybe 2 inches by 2 inches wide, right? You don't want to like score the tomato all the way through to the meat. You just really want to cut through the skin. Then what you do is you take your tomato, you throw it in the pot of boiling water for like 30 to 60 seconds, depending on how sort of thick and hard your tomatoes are. And then you immediately pull them out with a slotted spoon and you put them in a bowl of ice water. It's very similar to blanching, like green beans or broccoli, but you're doing it with tomatoes. And what that does, actually, it cooks just the outer like fraction of an inch of the tomato. What happens is you want it to stop cooking immediately, which is why you put it in the ice water. And so also it's easier to handle because it's no longer boiling hot, right? You pull it out of the ice water. Since just the skin layer has cooked, it peels off super easy. And if you're peeling your tomato and you notice the skin's not peeling off, it's kind of tearing and leaving in shreds, that means that you didn't cook it long enough. You can just throw it back in the boiling water for another few seconds. But if a tomato has been properly concussed, I'm not sure what the verb is. If the tomato has been cooked for the right amount of time in the boiling water before going in the ice water, the skin should just peel off in beautiful sheets without any drama.